Welcome to Learn Fluent English Pod. Today, we're diving into a psychological mystery. Why do people remember insults more than compliments? You might have received 100 kind words, but that one negative comment sticks in your mind for days, even years. Why does the brain do this? What's the science behind it? And most importantly, how can we overcome this negativity bias? Stick with us, and we'll break it all down, and of course, we'll highlight and explain advanced words, idioms, and phrasal verbs as we go. So stay engaged, repeat with us, and let's get started.
That's right. It's called negativity bias. Our brains are wired to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones. This was a survival mechanism in ancient times. Imagine early humans. They had to remember dangers like poisonous plants or predators to stay alive. Fast forward to today, and our brains still work the same way. So, if someone says something hurtful, it lingers far longer than a nice compliment. But here's the good news. We can train our minds to overcome this bias. We'll get into that soon, but first, let's talk about why insults hit harder than compliments.
One reason is emotional impact. Insults trigger stronger emotions than compliments. When someone criticizes you, it can shake your confidence, make you doubt yourself, or even trigger past insecurities. Compliments, on the other hand, are pleasant, but they don't create the same emotional shock. That's why, when someone tells you you're amazing, you might smile and move on. But if someone says you'll never succeed, it haunts you. Our brains naturally prioritize threats over rewards. It's part of how we evolved.
Exactly. And here's another thing. People tend to ruminate on negative experiences. To ruminate means to think about something over and over, often obsessing about it. If someone insults you, you replay the words in your mind, analyzing them from every angle. Compliments don't get the same treatment. You don't lie awake at night thinking, wow, they said I have a great sense of humor. But an insult? You'll dissect it, wonder if it's true, and let it shape how you see yourself.
That's such a good point. And here's another reason. Negative words feel more personal. Compliments are often broad and generic. People say, "You're great," or "Nice job." But insults tend to be more specific. If someone points out a flaw, real or imagined, it feels like they're seeing something deep about you. That's why insults cut deep while compliments feel fleeting. But before we continue, let's break down some of the key words and phrases we've already used. Pete, want to start?
Of course! Let's begin with negativity bias. This is the brain's tendency to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones. If you dwell on a single insult but forget 10 compliments, that's negativity bias at work. Another example. News outlets use negativity bias all the time. They focus on disasters and scandals because bad news grabs attention. Now, repeat after us. Negativity bias.
Come on, say it. Negativity bias. Another example, if you get one bad grade on a test but many good ones and you only focus on the bad one, that's negativity bias in action. Now, let's move to emotional impact. Pete, explain that one?
Sure. Emotional impact refers to how strongly something affects your feelings. If something has a strong emotional impact, it leaves a deep impression. Example, watching a heartbreaking movie has a strong emotional impact. Another example, a surprise party gives you a positive emotional impact. But insults? They usually create a negative emotional impact. Say it with us, emotional impact.
Emotional impact. Another example, if a speech inspires you and changes how you see the world, it had a strong emotional impact on you. Now, let's talk about ruminate. I mentioned this earlier. Pete, want to break it down?
Absolutely. To ruminate means to think about something repeatedly, often in a way that makes you anxious. If you keep replaying an insult in your head for days, you're ruminating on it. Another example. If you make a mistake at work and keep worrying about it long after, you're ruminating. Now say it with us. Ruminate.
Ruminate. Another example, people often ruminate over awkward moments, replaying them in their minds again and again. And now, let's go to feeling personal. Pete?
Great. Feeling personal means something affects you deeply because it seems directed at you. If someone says, "This project could be better," you might not take it personally. But if they say, "You're bad at this," it feels personal. Another example, if a stranger criticizes your outfit, you might feel like it's a personal attack. Say it with us, feeling personal.
Feeling personal. Another example, if your boss gives constructive criticism, try not to take it personally. It's about the work, not you. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. There's so much more to discuss.
Now, here's something interesting. Our brains are also wired to seek social belonging. If someone insults us, we fear being rejected or judged, which makes the insult feel even more intense. It's an instinct. In ancient times, being excluded from a group could mean life or death. Today, it's not that extreme, but the fear of rejection still exists. That's why a negative comment can feel like an attack on our self-worth. Even if the person insulting us doesn't matter in the long run, our brain treats it like a major threat.
Exactly. And let's not forget how insults often come with a sense of permanence. When someone criticizes us, we assume it defines us forever. For example, if someone says, "You're lazy," it can feel like they've stamped that label on you permanently, even if it's not true. Compliments, on the other hand, don't carry that same weight. You hear, "You're amazing," and might think, "That's nice," but you don't necessarily internalize it the same way. The insult, however, keeps replaying in your mind. It's like it etches itself into your memory.
Yes, and what's even worse, people often start internalizing negative comments. To internalize means to take something to heart so much that it becomes part of your self-image. If you hear "you're not smart" enough times, you might start believing it, even if it's completely false. That's why negative words are so powerful. They can shape how we see ourselves if we let them. But here's the thing. We don't have to accept every negative comment. There are ways to reframe our thinking so insults don't hold so much power over us.
Exactly. One technique is to counterbalance negative words with positive ones. If someone insults you, remind yourself of your strengths. If someone says, "You're not good enough," tell yourself, "I'm capable, I'm improving, and I've achieved a lot." Another technique is mental distancing. Imagine the insult coming from a ridiculous source, like a talking parrot. It helps weaken the sting. But before we talk more about how to overcome negativity bias, let's break down the words we just used. Pete, take the first one.
Let's start with social belonging. This means the feeling of being accepted by a group or society. If you move to a new city and make friends, you develop a sense of social belonging. Another example, people join clubs, communities, and sports teams to feel a sense of social belonging. Say it with us. Social belonging.
Social belonging. Another example, students in a new school might struggle with social belonging until they make friends. Now let's talk about self-worth. Pete?
Sure, self-worth is how much you value yourself. If you have high self-worth, you believe in yourself and your abilities. If you have low self-worth, you doubt yourself a lot. Example, if you fail a test but still know you're capable, you have strong self-worth. Another example, kind words from others can boost self-worth, while harsh criticism can damage it. Say it with us, self-worth.
Self-worth. Another example, practicing self-care and setting boundaries can improve your self-worth. Now, on to sense of permanence. Pete?
Yes. Sense of permanence means something feels long-lasting or unchangeable. If an insult gives you a sense of permanence, you believe it defines you forever. Example, if someone calls you slow, You might think you'll never be smart, even though that's not true. Another example: when people go through tough times, they often feel like their struggles have a sense of permanence, but in reality, things change. Say it with us: sense of permanence.
Sense of permanence. Another example, if you make a mistake at work, remind yourself it doesn't define you, it's not permanent. Now let's go to internalizing.
Great one. To internalize means to take something so personally that it becomes part of your thinking. If someone tells you you're not good at public speaking and you start avoiding speaking opportunities because you believe it, you're internalizing the criticism. Another example: children who receive constant praise internalize confidence, while those who receive too much criticism may internalize self-doubt. Say it with us: internalize.
Internalize. Another example, just because someone calls you not creative doesn't mean you should internalize it. You define yourself. And now, counterbalance.
Perfect. To counterbalance means to offset something with an opposite force. If you receive negative feedback, you can counterbalance it by focusing on positive feedback you've received in the past. Another example: if you hear a harsh criticism, you can counterbalance it by reminding yourself of your strengths. Say it with us: counterbalance.
Counterbalance. Another example, if you feel discouraged, counterbalance the negativity by celebrating your past achievements.
All right, now that we understand why insults stick and how our brains work, the real question is, how do we move forward? We can't control what people say, but we can control how we react. If we train our minds to focus on compliments just as much as we focus on insults, we can rewire our brains over time.
Exactly. It's all about awareness. The next time someone says something negative to you, take a step back. Ask yourself, does this really define me? Is this worth my energy? And most importantly, balance it out with positive affirmations. The more we practice, the better we get.